Alright, so sorry about the mishap. There was some confusion among me and the fam about when I was going live. Let's make sure it's working. Just had also some technical issues, anyways. For whatever reason, my live started when it wasn't supposed to. It was really weird. For whatever reason, my live started when it wasn't supposed to. Alright, so now it looks like it's fixed. Oh. Alright, so first off, this video is about the Detroit Lions 2022 statistical predictions, as you guys can see. And, well, I'm also going to maybe talk about the injuries, Frank Ragnow and Big V, what I think of them, and etc. So first off, let's do the statistical predictions as the live is said. And here we go. So first off, the quarterback position. Obviously, probably, arguably the most important. Maybe a bit of bold on my part. But Jared Goff, I think, will have a 66 completion percentage, 4,591 yards, 35 touchdowns to 10 interceptions. I think there might be some interceptions, It's a new coordinator. And going to be some tough battles here and there. For a running back position, I have DeAndre Swift getting 732 rush yards, 5 rushing touchdowns, 332 catching yards. Wrong. And 3 touchdowns. Jamal Williams with 521 rush yards, 3 rushing touchdowns, 130 yards catching, and 2 receiving touchdowns. Receiver, DJ Chark with 854 yards, 14.5 yards a catch, and 5 touchdowns. Josh Reynolds with 440 yards, 15 yards per catch, and 4 touchdowns. Amon-Ra St. Brown with 1,114 yards, 11 yards per catch, and 8 touchdowns. Jameson Williams with 509 yards, 11 yards per catch, and 5 touchdowns. And Quintus Cephas, I can't really predict the yards per catch, but since he's a receiver for, at best, and only for 4 games of the year, he's going to be getting 187 yards and 1 touchdown. Tight end, it's going to be TJ Hawkinson with 838 receiving yards and 6 touchdowns. Shane Zylstra at 104 yards and 1 touchdown. Brock Wright won't really get too much. That's just kind of there for the offense, and I guess I'll kind of explain why I think that will happen. So first off, Jared Goff. So the reason is he's got all these weapons. So it may not necessarily be what you think Goff will generally have, but you got DJ Chark, speedy deep threat, good ceiling as a receiver 1, great ceiling as a receiver 2 as well. I think he's a good receiver 2 regardless. You got Amon-Ra St. Brown, an absolute beast in the slot, and as we've seen from guys like Cooper Kupp and Hunter Renfrow, it's in a very dangerous position. And you got Jameson Williams coming back. Or you got Josh Reynolds, who he was already having great numbers with. You got TJ Hawkinson there. You'll have Sewell, and you'll have Ragnow and Decker in there, and Joe Jackson. I think it's going to be a pretty good year. He's going to have good online protection. I think the run game will be decent. He's got a coordinator he's worked all year the offense with. It's going to be a good year. Running backs, I just don't. DeAndre Swift is still not improving with his outside runs and also being greedy and taking some extra yards. I think he'll be an okay rusher along with Jamal. Neither will be too insane. DeAndre will continue being a good catching back, and Jamal will be as well, but he won't probably have as good years. And Chark, I know he's not going to be receiver 1, but I think he's going to have good receiver 2 numbers. He'll continue being that deep threat. He can get a good amount of chunk yards and have a good, decent amount of touchdowns. Runs, I think, will have good numbers until Jameson Williams comes back. I think he'll still have good receiver 4 numbers, but as a receiver 4, he probably won't gain too many yards. Monroe, I think, will be our only 1,000-yard receiver. I think there's going to be a lot of spreading the ball around, especially once Jameson Williams comes back. But I think he'll have 509 yards, 14 yards per catch, and 5 touchdowns. And Cephas, as I said, he's only kind of be a receiver for a while, so he's not going to get too many catches. Hawk, I think, is going to have a big year. He's the one who has arguably the most chemistry of Goff, besides for Amon-Ra St. Brown and maybe even Reynolds. He's a big tight end option, and I think I don't think he'll get 1,000 yards, but I think he'll have a good year. I think it's kind of like one of the things I explained, so yeah. So moving on to the offense. So Taylor Decker, I think he'll have 2 sacks allowed. I think he'll have a top 12 left tackle pressure rate allowed. We don't know what his total tackle pressure rate would be, but I think it'll be good left tackle numbers. Pascal, I think we'll have 1 sack allowed, but have top 2 pressure rate right tackle numbers. Overall, these guys are just absolute beasts, and I think are going to be the main reason the offense is going to be playing good. When you have 2 good offensive tackles, it really does wonders for your offensive line. Offensive guard, Jonah Jackson, I think he's going to kind of basically have a repeat season, 3 sacks allowed. Top 16 offensive guard pressure rate allowed. Logan Stenberg, I think he'd be kind of He's a pass protector, 2 sacks allowed, top 30. Offensive guard pressure rate allowed, but I don't think he'll be a complete liability, but I do think he's going to be a bit above average, maybe just average. Big V, when he comes back, will only allow 2 sacks and have top 24 offensive guard pressure rate allowed. Frank Ragnow will continue being a top 3 center. He has 0 sacks allowed, top 3 pressure rate allowed. It's Frank Ragnow, really. Do I even need to explain it for Frank the Tank? Defensive end. So, actually, no, I'm going to. So, as you guys can see, I kind of think this will be a top 15 offense, top in that range. And that's kind of going to work it. One price is yo. I'm always at the gym when you go live. That's hilarious. I also saw that dude live earlier. That was pretty fun to see. But yeah. Then defensive end, Aiden Hutchinson, 63 tackles, 8.5 sacks, 56 pressures, 1 forced fumble. I don't think he'll have too crazy of a season, but I am getting a bit more confident he could have maybe even better year than 8.5 because he's also done a great job at 3 tech. So once maybe if he's getting beat by some good elite tackles, he can just slide into the 3 tech on packages and still get a sack or a good amount of pressures in. Charles Harris, I think we'll have 54 tackles, 8 sacks, and 50 pressures. June Okwara, he's kind of also a linebacker, so I have him listed both. I both have his linebacker and defensive end stats listed at the same. But he gets. Actually, never mind. I'm gonna remove him from DE. But so he's kind of been moved to Sam, so I'm actually gonna remove him real quick. Austin Bryant, 18 tackles, 2 sacks, 8 pressures. John Kaminsky, 27 sacks, 3 sacks, 16 pressures. Josh Pascal will have 40 tackles, 4.5 sacks, and 20 pressures. Just kind of our guy right now. I feel like this is a good overall view of what you'll see from the defensive ends. Defensive tackles, Liam McNeil, 54 tackles, 1.5 sacks, 13 pressures. He's just a nose tackle. I don't think he's going to do anything crazy, but he'll have another great year as a run stuffer. Michael Brockers will have a similar season to last year. Isaiah Buggs at backup nose tackle numbers. Levi Onwuzurike will have 45 tackles, 4.5 sacks, and 21 pressures. Demetrius Traylor, I think, will also get a little bit of a stat line, but it won't be too much. He's an undrafted free agent, just a rotator, kind of hard to predict anyways. And then the linebacker, and also I guess I did want to mention one more thing. Josh Pascal, I think, will also be playing both defensive end and defensive tackle. He won't really have one there, but since he's listed defensive end, I think I put his defensive end numbers there. So he's also playing a lot of defensive tackle as well at that 3 tech spot with Levi Onwuzurike. Linebacker, Julian Okwara, since he's been moved to Sam, will have 48 tackles, 5 sacks, and 15 pressures. Coverage numbers. Alex Angelone will have 83 tackles, 1 touchdown allowed. As a rusher, 0 touchdowns allowed in coverage. Not 1 touchdown. 4 touchdowns allowed in rushing. 0 touchdowns allowed in coverage. Malcolm Rodriguez, I think, will have 104 tackles, 1 forced fumble, 1 touchdown allowed, and 80 rating. Nothing crazy. Nick Boltonish numbers except better in coverage. Derek Barnes will have 92 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 touchdowns allowed in coverage, and 100 rating. Chris Ward will have 20 tackles and no good coverage numbers, not really enough to put on there. And Josh Woods will have special teams tackles. At the cornerback position, Amani Oruwariwe has 53 tackles, 2 interceptions, 8 passes defense, 63% completion percentage, and 4 touchdowns allowed. It would be kind of an CB1. It's normal. Jeff Okuda will have 55 tackles, 2 interceptions, 5 pass defense, 58% completion percentage, and 1 touchdown allowed. It might be a bit bold for some of you. I think at quarterback 2, I really think Jeff Okuda could shine. Mike Hughes gets 32 tackles, 64% completion percentage, 2 touchdowns allowed. Will Harris gets 38 tackles, 65% completion percentage, and 3 touchdowns allowed. Jared Jacobs gets 19 tackles, 64% completion percentage, and 3 touchdowns allowed. Cornerback position is kind of a hard position to switch to, especially when you haven't practiced all year and you're coming off a major injury. And I'm also just not too high on Jared Jacobs. Safeties. Tracy Walker gets 112 tackles, 2 interceptions, 1 sack, 5 pass defense, 2 touchdowns allowed, 91 rating. Kind of similar year to last year. Deshaun Elliott gets 90 tackles, 1 sack, 4 passes defense, 59% completion percentage, and 2 touchdowns allowed. PT Miller for 1, who gets 28 tackles. And then special teams, I don't really, it's not even official who we really even knows who is our kick returner yet. And I just don't think it's really that much to predict for a punt returner. So I didn't put those two in. Jack Fox, punter numbers are kind of hard to predict, so I just kind of said repeat from Pro Bowl year. Austin Seibert, I think, gets 36 kicks made out of 39. Long of 61, and all this extra points are made. So that's going to be my little bit of rankings there. And the reason is, I also think Seibert, he might have some misses. I know 4 may be a bit concerning, but I don't think he's an elite kicker. I think he's maybe got potential to be that way, but I don't think. But that's just kind of who I have up there. I think he has a nice 61-yarder as well. See what happens there. But yeah, there's some guys I didn't put in here, like the rotational guys. I just kind of mainly did major contributors or starters as my predictions. But yeah. So One Pride says, yeah, so no double-digit sackers. I don't know. The thing is, it's kind of hard to predict double-digit sackers because there's only 2 guys who I think have a chance to get double digits. Charles Harris and Aiden Hutchinson. I feel like Aiden Hutchinson's going to get all the attention in the world since he's that number 2 overall pick. He has that big name coming out. Maybe he had a good preseason. I could maybe see him get it, though, anyways, because he can also slide a 3-tech and get some extra sacks, because I still expect him to get some sacks. Charles Harris, maybe. I do think he's a good edge rusher. I think he's going to be a guy who now he can really kind of be like last year consistently. I just don't know if he can be a 10-sack guy yet. We'll see what happens. I think maybe more accurately, a slightly better year from last year is going to be there. Because I do think maybe the one thing that might prevent Aiden Hutchinson from getting double teams is Harris, and so it might just be normal blocking for everyone. Who knows? I just don't like giving rookies insane stats, and I don't want to go too bold with that with Charles Harris, so that was just kind of my reasoning there. Yeah, so that's my statistical predictions for the season. But yeah, so then also I did want to talk about the Frank Ragnow injury situation. Frank Ragnow got a groin injury to which he finished practice but was limited. I think he's going to be okay because I know a lot of people are worried that he's not going to make it. I think he's going to be fine. I think he was just resting the other day because he did return to practice today and practiced basically fully. I think they were careful with him, but he's even listed in questionable on ESPN. He really is most likely going to make it. I'm not worried about Frank Ragnow, but Big V is officially out, being placed on IR for 4 games, but I'm not too worried about us losing Big V because of, well, he was really our worst starter. He wasn't too crazy. He was a good player, but I think Taylor Decker, Jackson, Ragnow, and Sewell were kind of the more vital ones, and we have, I think, I don't think Logan Stenberg should hold us back too much. If losing just one starter for us is bad, it really hurts our O-line, and I'd be a little bit more concerned. What up, Dr. Detroit? But yeah, so that's just kind of my reasonings there. I'm not too worried about the right guard position just somehow being the bane of our existence. But yeah, especially because Logan Stenberg, he's unproven, so it's not like we know if he's good or bad. We'll see what happens. Oh yeah, my prediction, I just think it's going to be Logan Stenberg at right guard. I really don't think we're going to slide Ragnow out to guard or Sewell into guard. For one, I think Sewell moving guard would be the worst plan ever. You do not want to put Matt Nelson back out there when tackles are a more important position than right guard. So, that's just kind of my little thing there. I did also want to talk about some guys I think that could be sleepers for maybe improvements in the year. I do think maybe a sleeper to have maybe a better year than expected could be Austin Bryant. I know everyone's kind of like gotten him attention now because it's preseason year, but he's coming off a year where he very well might very well might be the main rotational pass rusher behind. Well, not rotational, but kind of like backup behind Aiden Hutchinson and Harris. Since Julian Okwara has been moved to the Sam linebacker position, and I think he could actually do a pretty solid job there. I don't think he'll do anything crazy, but I think kind of like that 4.5 sack year could be a consistent thing from Bryant. But in terms of like actual sleepers, I know everyone likes to count out Levi Onwuzurike because of his back injuries, but the dude's coming back faster than we anticipated. He's listed as questionable for Philly. I doubt he plays in Philly, to be honest with you, but I bet you he plays either week 2 or 3. I think he's a dude that could really surprise people as well, but I think most of all, the sleeper that everyone seems to kind of just be hating on is Tracy Walker. I'm in a couple of Discord servers. I've talked to a couple people on Twitter. Tracy Walker is arguably one of the most disrespected players I've ever seen. The dude has had 2 100+ yards, some not tackle seasons, and he's overall just been great for us. Let's see if I can pull up the Tracy Walker coverage numbers. It won't show for you guys yet, and here it is. Okay, so Tracy Walker. So his coverage numbers actually. This is a dude that's improving. One of his issues when he was being a good safety, even during 2019 where he had a good year, he wasn't that good in coverage. Last year, this dude massively improved. He went 4% down. Yeah, 4% down in completion percentage. He allowed 3 less touchdowns, and his rating went from 122 to 97.6. That's with a worse pass rush, and Glenn's first season as a defensive coordinator, and Dan Campbell's first season as a head coach, and just a plain old worse offense as well. I think this is the year that Tracy Walker could really have a breakout year. The dude has versatility. He's a good hybrid safety. I don't know if he'll ever be a star, but I think this could be a year where he gets 100 tackles again, and he has good coverage numbers. And I think the main reason people are down on Tracy Walker is he's not a ball hawk, but I think this dude will solidify himself as a starter this year. I don't think they're necessarily going to be a full-on sleeper. Oh, what up, Debt Fan Man? Oh, I also didn't see Dr. Detroit's in here. Sorry, I was focused on my thing, but nice to see Dr. Detroit in here. And Debt Fan Man's also here. But yeah, so Debt Fan Man's talking about Matt Nelson's always an option that should be very much in the back. Like, the only reason I would want to see Penei Sewell with offensive guard is Logan Stenberg gets hurt, Drew Forbes gets hurt, and that's it. I don't ever want to see Sewell at guard because we have backup guards. We shouldn't put out our starting right tackle and go put in a guy who was horrible last year at right tackle. Like, actually, I'll actually even show you guys the differences of when Matt Nelson was out versus when Taylor Decker came back and Goff. Sorry, not Goff. Sewell and Decker. Here you go. So this is just how bad Matt Nelson is to Detroit, man. Out here, when let's see, where's pressure rate? Here's okay. Matt Nelson when he was out here for pressure rate. So let's see, Decker came back at Pittsburgh, I believe. So Decker comes back at Pittsburgh. Philly was the last game that Matt Nelson played. So this dude, when Matt Nelson was out here, so I think 20.7% was the last. Never mind. The last game that this dude had was 51.3% versus Philly. He had 46.2%, 27.3%, 25.6%, 23.3%, and a 25.6%. Like, the O-line was just garbage besides for 1, 2, and 3 games under Matt Nelson when Matt Nelson was out there. Goff comes back, it goes down to 20.7, 19.2, 20.0, 16.7, 25, and 25.8. And at least the 25 could be down because there's at least some top defenses they faced. Matt Nelson is he's just awful. I don't really know if you necessarily need a ball hawk at safety as much as people think you do. Um, I'll pull up a guy. Like, I'll pull up PFR so that way you guys can see it. That didn't reference. There you go. So Micah Hyde, one of the best duos. Everybody, this isn't what it keeps taking me to the news. The dude, there it is. As Micah Parsons. What is going on? Computer's giving me a hard time. Okay. Games. All right. So, nope. That's this isn't okay. How about work for Jordan Boyer? Okay, well, PFR isn't working for me. It keeps taking me to to the freaking news. I don't know why, but I don't think you necessarily need a ball hawking safety. I think what you need is good coverage and a good people who don't allow breakoffs like Will Harris. I think it's more of a luxury to think you want when you're an elite team. I don't think you necessarily need that. Because there's guys who get interceptions, like everyone knows with Trayvon Diggs, that just isn't good in coverage and can hold a team back sometimes. But all right, so Jamar, Debt Famine asks Jamar question mark. So what about Jamar? Oh, you asking who Dr. Detroit's hate? Well, I mean Tracy Walker's contract wasn't actually that much. I believe it was only about seven. It was a 3-year, $25 million contract. The base salary for this season will be 1.35 mil. The next season will be 8.9 mil. 2024 will be 7.9 mil. So we're really not overpaying Tracy really at all. Kind of paying him normal safety starting numbers. In fact, maybe a bit cheaper than expected. In fact, he was projected to get actually 10 mil plus. So if anything, we got him a lot cheaper than expected. Occasionally, yeah. Let's see if PFR works. Maybe it'll work. Generally good in coverage, but oh wait, this is last. No, never mind. Stats already updated. Oh, that's probably the reason I'm getting such season started. So all of them are there. Okay, so nope. I don't know why. I don't know. I just don't think they're completely vital. I don't know why my PFR keeps taking me the news and not their stats. Sorry, yo. But yeah, so that's just kind of my take on that. I guess since everyone's here, I might as well re-show my prediction stats since the only person who was here earlier was one Pride. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. So just to re-show, since everyone I don't think was there earlier. At least the only person I saw was that. Again, Jared Goff, 66% completion percentage, 591 yards, 35 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. DeAndre Swift, 732 rush yards, 5 touchdowns, 332 receiving yards, and 3 touchdowns. Jamal Williams at 521 rush yards, 3 touchdowns, and 130 yards receiving, 2 receiving touchdowns. DJ Chark will have 854 yards, 14.45 yards a catch, and 5 receiving touchdowns. Josh Reynolds will have 440 yards, 15 yards per catch, and 4 touchdowns. Amon-Ra St. Brown will have 1,114 yards, 11 yards per catch, and 8 touchdowns. Jameson Williams will have 509 yards, 14 yards per catch, and 5 touchdowns. Quintus Cephas will have 187 yards and 1 touchdown. Tight ends, T.J. Hawkinson with 838 yards, 6 touchdowns. St. Dilsher, 104 yards, 1 touchdown. Brock Wright will just have random amount of yards. Dave Decker, 2 sacks allowed. Top 12 left tackle pressure rate allowed. Bennett Sewell, 1 sack allowed. Top 2 right tackle pressure rate allowed. Offensive guard, Jonah Jackson, 3 sacks allowed, top 16 offensive guard pressure rate. Lowen Stenberg, 2 sacks allowed, top 30 offensive guard pressure rate. Big V, 2 sacks allowed, top 24 offensive guard pressure rate allowed. That's good. It's kind of like my main offense, along with Ragnar, just having Ragnar type numbers. It's really, if you want to see my defense for this, it's a little bit earlier in the live, before I delete that Batman and all that. And defensive end, your numbers there: 63 tackles, 8.5 sacks, 56 pressures, and 1 forced fumble for Aiden Hutchinson. Charles Harris, 54 tackles, 8 sacks, 50 pressures. Austin Bryant, 18 tackles, 2 sacks, and 8 pressures. John Kaminsky, 27 tackles, 3 sacks, 16 pressures. And Josh Pascal, 40 tackles, 4.5 sacks, and 20 pressures. The defensive tackle position, which also can technically contain Josh Pascal and Kaminsky at times. Lee McNeil, 54 tackles, 1.5 sacks, 13 pressures. Michael Brockers, 40 tackles, 1.5 sacks, 10 pressures. Isaiah Buggs, 13 tackles. Levi Onwuzurike will have 45 tackles, 4.5 sacks, and 21 pressures. Linebacker will have 48 tackles, 5 sacks, 15 pressures. Alex Anzalone with tackles, 4 touchdowns allowed as a rusher. 0 touchdowns allowed in coverage, though, with a 79 rating. Malcolm Rodriguez will have 104 tackles, 1 forced fumble, 1 touchdown allowed, 80 rating. Derek Barnes will have 92 tackles, 2 sacks, 2 touchdowns allowed, and 100 rating. Chris Board will be 20 tackles and 5 tackles as a special teamer. Cornerback, Magnon will have 53 tackles, 2 interceptions, 8 pass defense, 63% completion percentage, and 4 touchdowns allowed. Jeff Okuda will have 55 tackles, 2 interceptions, 5 pass defense, 58% completion percentage, and 1 touchdown allowed. Mike Hughes will have 32 tackles, 64% completion percentage, and 2 touchdowns allowed. Will Harris will have 38 tackles, 65% completion percentage, and 3 touchdowns allowed. And Jerry Jacobs will have 19 tackles, 64% completion percentage, and 3 touchdowns allowed. And the safeties, of course, 112 tackles, 2 interceptions, 1 sack, 5 pass defense, 2 touchdowns allowed, 91 rating. Deshaun Elliott, 9 tackles, 1 sack, 4 pass defense, 59% completion percentage, and 2 touchdowns allowed. Vito Melifuanu, 28 tackles. Special teamers, Austin Cyber, 36 out of 39 field goals, long 61, all PATs in lead. I think his only misses might be a long one. I think maybe actually 37 would be more accurate, but Beck Fox has himself a Pro Bowl year. And yeah, so that's just going to become my statistical predictions. Yeah, it's 838 worth an extension. Also, CMR Memorial in here. What up, brother? So 838. Yes, I think so. It's just depending on how much stats he'll get there. It's not really too much of a concern for me. I think the big thing is Hawks. I think definitely worth an extension is just how much of you're talking. If you think he's gonna get like top 3 tackle extension money, no. But if Dawson Knox is getting paid the way he is, David Njoku is getting paid the way he is, Hawks still would have a bit of a contract. But I think having that good of a year will be enough to earn himself an extension. And I think it's kind of showing that, hey, I can get a big year out of it. Because an 800-yard year with 6 touchdowns is a pretty dang good year for a tight end. Especially if he improves his blocking. Jamal Williams having a pretty good year, in my opinion, bro. But yeah, so that's just going to be my season there. I will be going. I'll try to get like a little bit of a roundtable maybe this weekend. Maybe try to see if I can bring in Ram's house. Maybe if I can try to bring in some other friends and get a little talk about the Eagles game, see what they say. So, all right, it's gonna be the end of my live. I gotta go do some life, clean some garages and get ready for work and all that jazz. So I will see you all later. Go Lions, go everyone. One proud.